18 months ago, my wife and I took on the ultimate DIY challenge. We bought this, a derelict farmhouse in the west of Ireland, left untouched for many years.
Little did we know that this house would push us to our limits, testing skills, patience and creativity. With a housing crisis gripping Ireland, we managed to secure a grant of 70,000 to bring this derelict house and make it into a home.
But there's a catch. We can't use any contractors.
So we decided to do it all ourselves, from plumbing to plastering, from roofing to electrics. We started with no experience, just determination to get the work done.
You see, many years ago, these old houses would have been built by what's called in Irish a mehel. And this is a group of friends and families who came together to build it. They're simple houses really, and we kind of thought, can we build it the olden ways with just some friends and family? So we were approved a grant for about 70,000. Do we spend a bit more, a bit less? Well, we'll get to that and we'll break down every section as we go through it. There's one thing it didn't cover, and that was hours and hours and hours and hours of daylight work for myself and Claire, and quite a lot of nighttime work.
This video will reveal the full story of the restoration, from the purchase price to the negotiation, building costs and all of the final finishes.
By the end of this video, we'll give you a very good idea about how much it costs to restore one of these lovely old farmhouses, and we'll show you things you might consider if you're going to undertake such a project yourself. But for now, let's dive in.
Let's go.
So this being Ireland, and rural Ireland, of course there was a bit of a story to the purchase. So we had just fallen through on two houses that we were sale agreed on, but our house was sold, so we had 2 weeks to find a new farmhouse. So we were getting a little bit desperate, I'd say that's fair to say, isn't it?
Big time.
And
Homeless.
we saw this ad in the paper, well not the paper, on a site called myhome.ie. It was just a picture of a field, and it was actually a field in a different townland, and it just said old farmhouse with bit of land for sale. That was it, no picture of the farmhouse. So we rang up lovely lady Mary Cotter, and we asked about the farmhouse and can we come see it, and she said, well, you know, the neighbours will want to meet you first, they're the ones selling it. And we said, that's fine, can we have the air code? She was like, only if you promise not to tell it to anybody. So the air code is like, it's a GPS coordinate for it, but they didn't want to share it, so they were kind of quiet about letting the neighbours know that they were selling the old farmhouse. Anyway, we came out to it, we saw it, we absolutely fell in love with it. The sun was shining on it, it was beautiful. There was a wonderful view of our valley, which you can't really see much here because there's a big mountain covered in light, or covered in cloud. So we fell in love with it, we could see the mountain, and then we met the owner, and turns out that this particular field wasn't for sale. And when we spoke to the auctioneer, we were like, this field is like, this makes it, we have to have the field. And she went back and she spoke to the owner and said maybe it was something you could negotiate later, and we were like, no, we have to do it now, we can't move in here if we can't get the field. And it turned out that this field was also the favourite field of the previous owner, and it was our favourite field, so from now on it's known as the favourite field. So anyway, we really wanted a house. We were going to pay absolutely anything for the house, and we decided we really wanted a field, so how are we going to get it? So I decided to come in low. So I gave a good offer, a decent bid under asking, and the owners were like, oh well, we really like you, we want you to have it, but that's way too low. And I said, well, you know, without the field I feel that's what it's worth. And then they were like humming and hawing, and I think it went back over about a week and a half. The auctioneer was trying to help us, and in the end I think they came back and said, well, if you paid at the asking price you could have it. And we were like, yes, perfect. So we were delighted. We were even figuring out how would we pay more, would we get my parents to help us or something. But so that was the negotiation, and that's how we got the property, and that's how we got the favourite field. And so it's the farmhouse. There was 2 outbuildings immediately on the side. There was 3.5 barns, we call them 4 barns down here.
Menagerie of barns.
There was a few outbuildings down by the bottom, and there's an outbuilding up by the top, which was used, I think, for water.
We don't know, we haven't explored that yet.
We haven't gone in there yet. So all of this was we're not going to tell you. It was somewhere between 175,000 and 225,000. And I want you guys to let us know in the comments below how much you think this was worth. So we were happy with all of that. The outbuildings were wonderful. We managed to get a few acres. It was just under approximately 3 acres, I think. We had a lovely big south-facing property, and like the field in front of it means there'll be no shade, there'll be no trees, so we always get very good weather, and it keeps the place lovely and warm. And we also had a well, which was brilliant. We got a grant and got a second well dug. There's also 2 springs. There was septic, registered septic on site, and we were connected to the electricity. The electricity was a little bit old, so it had to be replaced. So that's why we had to have all those trees taken down by the electrical supply board. They needed to put a brand new pole, and they needed to do a bit of work on the wire going across. So all of these services, they could have cost an extra 50,000 on a house. So we felt that was a really, really good price for a derelict house to have all of that. Yeah. Plus we knew it was empty for, I think, at least 3 to 4 years. So we knew we'd qualify for the vacant grant. All around, it was a really good deal. Very hard to look. And considering it wasn't properly advertised,
no,
it just shows you guys, you got to be absolutely like diligent to search everywhere for a deal, and then when a deal comes you got to pounce on it super quick. And it helps that we were 2 weeks away from being homeless.
Yes,
to make us move fast.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think the minute Mary Cotter sent us the photo initially of the little house in the sun, I knew it was the one.
And it was really good actually that we came down and meet the neighbours, because we would never normally have done that, but
no,
I'd advise you to do it. It's nice to know the area you're moving into, and they of course were able to tell you about everyone else that lived in the vicinity. So, and
also about the house, about any problems we've had, any things that they might have that we needed to investigate. You know, they were able to give us a complete background, and as a result have turned out to be like the best friends we could ever wished for. So
perfect neighbours.
It really, really helps if you can get to know the people who are selling it, and it just cuts out so many problems in the future if you're trying to find out information that you never had from the start.
There's a McMahon bag, some blocks, a bit more of our pipe work, a little bit more of the pipe work.
With a tight budget, we couldn't afford to go down the route of tradesmen and middlemen, so we sourced things that were local and maybe salvaged certain items that we knew that we could reuse. We did of course have to go to specialists for the roof, such as Gusclad, who provided us with our metal roof. All of the old roofing we were able to reuse on our pump house and our future solar array. So it was great to be able to do that, and also most of the stonework that we took down in both of the buildings, either side of the farmhouse, we were able to incorporate back into the new foundations and new walls. From the start, it was easy then to just try and bring everything together with one supplier. So we went with McMahon's in Dunmanway, and they supplied all of our substructure, our wood, our plumbing, our pipes, our drainage, some of that we still need to use, all of our timbers,
vapor barrier,
membrane,
water, electrical,
all of those things. And because they were the only people who were supplying that, we knew that was just coming as a job lot, and also they were able to give us a better price on it as a total. So it meant even at the end we also were able to ensure that we had all the proper receipts, because they all came from the one supplier. So we used McMahon's primarily for all of the big construction. They provided the larch for the cladding and all of the substructure materials, but we did of course use our local suppliers such as Topline and Bantry and Drinna Co-op, which is local here all throughout West Cork, for all little pieces that perhaps we might have forgotten about, such as a lot of plumbing supplies that you would have needed, fittings, piping, fittings and all of those kind of small things. It's super handy to be able to pick those up. McMahon's were based in Dunmanway, but they were able to ship stuff out super quickly, and they were able to really put stuff where we wanted it as well. All of the aggregate and all the sand, the concrete blocks that we have here, all came from McMahon's. I think the only thing that came from far away up the country was the roofing, which came from Cavan, I think. Was it?
I can't remember, somewhere up.
Gusclad or somewhere up.
Roscommon maybe, is it?
Roscommon or somewhere. And Rob was able to calculate exactly what we needed, and we used every single panel.
They're very good. If you send your drawings to Gusclad, they'll actually prepare the metal for you. I didn't realise, but I ordered a really thick metal, which was really heavy to get.
Yeah, it was heavy.
We might have been a bit cheaper on the metal if we didn't get such a heavy one. But it just means that our house is like practically
bomb-proof.
Yeah, bomb-proof.
Yeah. So, on to the planning.
So with regards to planning, we use software called FreeCAD. It was really hard to use. I haven't used it since. I'm doing another project, or planning another project, and even now I've forgotten how to use it. It's a really complicated project to use. However, it is brilliant at estimating quantities. So for example, you can set your floor area to, let's say, I don't know, what is this? 10 meters by 5 meters for the farmhouse. So 50 meters square, and you can determine that I want, 4 inches of concrete. It'll then break that down exactly how much cement, exactly how much sand, exactly how much aggregate you need. Also, I built all of these walls. They were timber framed, and I could specify that I wanted the joists, or sorry, the studs 16 on center, so 16 inches apart. And in FreeCAD, I could take the large layer off, and I could count all of the studs. So that made it really, really easy for me to order materials. So just with regards to planning, factor in a few weeks to learn how to use good software like FreeCAD, and it'll actually save you kind of months down the line. But it really is a hard learning curve, but I think it's very worth it. FreeCAD, as the name implies, is free. I like free things. You can pay money and probably use something a little bit easier, but for us, all the software we used in this project, it was all free. So it didn't cost us anything. Lovely jubbly.
So before we could even think or use this FreeCAD or think about building up, we had to demolish an awful lot of buildings before we could start. So either side, like I said, we had barns and sheds and lean-tos, and that obviously was all going to be our footprint to use. So as you can see, there's an awful lot still of the debris and the stones, which we will use, but we have more stone than you could shake a stick at. But
we actually used so many of it here, all of those concrete.
We did use a lot, and we decided that we wanted to use all of the concrete blocks from the external kitchen at the back.
Maybe a better view over here.
We wanted to use all of the concrete blocks that made up the old kitchen here at the background for our foundation for our future kitchen, and also all of the stonework that was this old barn and the piggery to be able to build up. And also we can use all of this for future walls and paving and all sorts of things. So there wasn't a lot of cost involved in this, because it was our time and effort and pain and sweat and tears to take it all down and reuse it again. So there was very little cost in the demolition side of things. So the cost for the demolition came in at €120, and really that wasn't expense to anybody but for our safety, which was gloves, PPE gear, masks, helmet, or hard hats, that sort of thing.
So the next big ticket item in this build was the substructure. Substructure is basically everything that comes out of the ground to get up to sort of the floor level. So for this, this is a pretty good example. We used on the footings the large stones, but behind that we filled it in with a whole pile of rubble. In that rubble, we didn't really add anything until we got to the very top. At that level, we started to add some finer kind of builder's gravel, which we purchased. We added sand on top of that. We added a damp-proof membrane. We added insulation. We added the concrete screed finish, and within that we added the heating, the underfloor, the electric underfloor, which we're not going to include that. But everything else that went into the substructure for this space, for the kitchen, for the dining room, for the bathroom, wardrobe and bedroom, that came at about 7,800, give or take. Now, some of the things like the gravel, we didn't just use it for this, we used it for other areas, so we're just going to round that up to the substructure for the whole house. Oh, rebar as well. Do you know, anything that went beneath the concrete, we're saying about 7,800 for that, and I think that was a very good deal. So next up, out of the ground came the superstructure. This is essentially the walls here. Because we were doing timber framing for the rebuild of these areas, we started with a damp-proof course. We put a little foam barrier to stop insects getting in under the wood. Then we used pressure-treated wood. Then we used 6x2s in the walls for the studs and 8x2s for the ceiling joists. But we filled them with insulation and we clad them with this lovely larch. And there was a few things additionally we kind of encountered on it, but for the most part the superstructure came to 14,760. Mostly it was wood, there was insulation, there of course was nails and some anchor bolts. And again, not a lot of money, but you started to see some huge progresses to the build at that point.
So the next thing we had to concentrate on was, once we had the walls up, would be the internal services within the walls, such as all of the plumbing pipes, all of the wiring for lights, outdoor lights, all of the ventilation, and obviously all of, in the ceilings would have been all of the fire alarms and all of these sort of things. So that was a massive spend. All of those wiring, all the wires and the plumbing and all of that came to a total of 14,500. Our electrician obviously wanted us to have everything up to the top spec, and so he insisted and very much just made the decisions on what we did need to buy for that. This also included all of the heating, the infrared heaters, underfloor, electric underfloor mats, and we still have an awful lot to cover because we still do need to do a lot of outdoor for running our new consumer unit, which will be in the pump house. The roof, of course, is a massive cost. However, it all came from the one place, as I said, Gusclad. It included all of the fascias, all of the soffits, fittings that went with all fitting the roof, the tech screws, the caps, everything. Then the timbers that went in, such as the rafters, the battens, all of the membrane to cover the roof, and all of that came in under one cost. And of course the Velux windows. So all of that came in at 10,790 in total. So let's move on to the next cost. By far our most luxurious and biggest spend were the windows and doors that we put in. We wanted to have the best that we could get, and especially on the south side where we have full sun all of the day, and it just brings in so much radiant heat. So that was really important to us. The total cost for all of the windows and doors came in at 20,700, which was just within the budget of 21,000. So this side of the house is the north side, and it will eventually be our front door. We made this decision because we want to be able to have this area as somewhere that you can come and park, and you come in this side of the house. This frees up the south side of the house for all garden, sitting, deck area if we want to, because we get so much sun. Pizza oven. We get so much sun from the other side that it was a pity to keep using that as our front entrance. Initially we had decided not to put any windows on this side because it was north facing, but through being in the house and as was ultimately living in it, we didn't realize just how we get such a lovely sunset when the sun sets this side in the summertime. So this window was something that we suddenly decided afterwards to purchase and put in as our dining room window, and we're so glad that we did. All of the windows are double glazed PVC. The doors are composite, and we didn't go for triple glazing because this is an old farmhouse, and really it isn't necessary unless you're trying to soundproof it. So by far the best part of the windows, or the purchase with the windows, were these sash windows. We got 5. They would have been replaced the original spaces where the original 5 windows were in the front of the farmhouse. So the nice thing about these windows is that they fold back into each other, which is great for letting more air in or for cleaning or anything like this. So you can pull up the bottom one and bring it back towards you, and also the top one. So it makes it super handy upstairs for cleaning and just general access, really. Some tape. So when we were looking at the windows, we could have actually chosen other alternatives. Obviously we could have gone for wood,
Alu-clad, that was another one,
or alu-clad windows, or there are so many different options available. But when we went with Wendo Warehouse in Rosscarbery, he gave us so much help in deciding what we wanted out of it, and really he advised us to go with these because he said because we're so close to the coast that wood wouldn't last. Also, it's not particularly practical anymore, and these really were the best option for us at the time. The wood would have been very heavy and you wouldn't have been able to do all of the maneuvering that you can do with these, and really just all around they are just much better solution than any sort of old previous options. Wood actually would have been cheaper to use in this situation, but we decided to go with what he recommended, which were the best for our situation. This is actually a bog oak colour. It's actually a dark brown, and it does look black, but the other thing about this is that it doesn't fade, and so it's nice, and it kind of has a bit of a wood texture to it.
as is the door actually, Claire, isn't it? The door is looking a little bit dirty now at the moment, but
yeah,
same bog oak.
So it's the same bog oak, and we didn't know what doors to choose when we were first looking at these, but this was the style of door that was here day one. Might be able to find you a picture of the original door.
Still down in the barn.
It was just a blue door with this, and it had a big knocker on the front, and we were thinking would we try to incorporate that, but it just wasn't worth trying to do that. So we tried to go for something very simple, just exactly the same as the big wooden door that was here, and also the same, this is the same but in a larger size for the front door, and that's just, we wanted a very simple look.
I think they're about they were part of the 20,000, which is all the windows and doors.
Yeah,
but I think they're about 2,500 each or 2,000 each or something, weren't they?
I'm not sure on the cost,
but while we're here, they were about 2,000. These picture windows were, I think they were about 1,500, weren't they? Each of these picture windows. But on a day like this, you can really see there's absolutely no shade from the sun. It just, even this is the depth of winter. I'd know this is the 15th 16th of December, and the sun just misses the top of those trees. So like the perfect distance, you can't get more perfect to try and capture as much winter sun, and it just heats up the concrete. That's the way we designed it. We have a planning video, I might link it here. The other thing which was a major splurge for us were these monster patios. While the rest of it was PVC, these doors were actually aluminium, because they're so big and they're so heavy and they just glide so effortlessly. And we wanted something really, really nice here, because the plan is to build a little platform that's going to go all the way around. And
deck.
yeah, we're kind of making this an indoor outdoor sort of kitchen living room space. So they were a lot. They were 6,000. So it gives you a ballpark of the kind of the choices we made for the windows. Everything else in the house we were super cost effective on price, but for the windows we really wanted something spectacular, so we focused a lot of our grant towards that. I hate these cats. Why do they get up on my car?
She doesn't understand.
This is what we call
little.
Yeah, but why did they look at the state of the car?
She just likes to look down at Rooney. Big Mama. When it came to painting, we decided to go 2 routes. We used lime and a lime whitewash for anything that was on the actual old building of the farmhouse. So all of this was the external farmhouse wall, and all of that I have whitewashed. Primarily because that's what it had before, and we believe on always allowing it to still breathe through. Any of the new build then, the extension and going all the way up to our bedroom and the ceilings, we used just a white top line paint. This was ridiculously reasonable at €25 for a 10-litre bucket. So it was a no-brainer to use that and get the paint spray out and spray all the same. In time, we can always come back and change colours and this sort of thing. But because of those choices that we made, so this brought the total cost to the painting, including the paint sprayer and the steamer and all of the necessary paintbrushes and all sorts. Actually, we didn't use a lot of paintbrushes, but we did need to use paintbrushes here and there, obviously where the sprayer couldn't get, or it was just made more sense to use them. And the total cost for that was $2,490, which is incredibly good for the entire house.
Tung oil as well was included in that. We went through about 15 litres of tung oil.
We also... What?
Yeah, each one of those packs were 5 litres. We went through 3 litres, 3 packs.
The other paint cost that was included in this was for the tung oil. And we bought and used a lot of tung oil when we got to know of how good it was and how nice it is to use, because it's so natural products. You don't need any gloves or anything like that, and it can be used on surfaces for food. We used on everything from the concrete to the concrete floors, to the concrete worktops, to all of the wooden surfaces. So that was also included in that cost.
So our kitchen then, which is my pride and joy, and I suppose Claire's pride and joy from a baking perspective, came in at a very reasonable $3,600. Now, we got some good advice from a lot of different places, including my mum, who told us I did want to build all the kitchen cabinets myself. My mum convinced us to get carcasses from B&Q or from IKEA. They have a very good reputation and a very good warranty, and they are very cheap. We managed to get a 30% off deal. I think it was around Black Friday. We ordered the kitchen like about 9 months before we needed it. It was a pain in the ass putting it into storage, and we ordered everything too early, but we just wanted to spend the money so we knew that we wouldn't run out, which was probably a good thing to do in hindsight. So the kitchen carcass, I think, came to around 3,000, I want to say, 2,800. And then I got birch plywood, and I had seen online a couple of different styles, different finishes. So I knew I wanted to make my own cabinet doors, but I just wasn't sure on the finish. So anyway, I got the birch plywood. I think this came to, I want to say, around the 500 for everything I got. And then the work surface was incredibly cheap. I want to say this was maybe around €100 for our island and for our 2 work surfaces here. Tiles we're going to get to in a minute, that came under a different budget. So all in for the kitchen, for the cabinets, for the counter, for the sink, for the taps and stuff, I think we were looking around 3,600, I think.
We had 4 bathrooms to kit out, tiling wise. So the tiling allowance isn't massive. I think it's 2,800.
Yeah.
So we knew we did have to be careful with where we were going with the tiling. Most of our floors are concrete, so that's the way we've left them for the moment. But in regards to showers and waterproofing, it was absolutely essential that they were tanked properly with a waterproof membrane and also tiled. And obviously, we usually use tiles for showers. You can use other things, but this is the way we decided to go in each of the bathrooms, in all 4 of the bathrooms, and we all have showers. So that was the situation with the tiles. The tiles all came from, we didn't go to any shop to pick out tiles. We picked everything out online, and all of the tiles came from B&Q also, along with the kitchen cabinets. And so we were able to, in that sense, also put together a job lot of stuff got from B&Q. A bit like McMahon's when we got our substructure and superstructure. So we were able to put the tiles, the kitchen, the carcasses and all of those things. The bathroom wear actually also came from B&Q. So in that way, the receipts were sort of minimalized, that everything came from one place. So the total cost spent on the tiling was 2,200. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the total cost on for the tiling and the waterproofing was 2,200. A lot of the tiles, for that price, a lot of the tiles that we decided to choose were ex-demo or reduced clearance.
Yeah.
So like I said, we also got the sanitary ware from B&Q and Bath Shack actually. We also, because we wanted to get a bath, and the bath that we picked was from Bath Shack. So I think maybe one of the en-suites upstairs came from Bath Shack also, or parts of those kits. But some of the sanitary ware also came from B&Q, especially the sinks. We wanted these round sinks. We also obviously have a black one in our bedroom, which we still need to figure out our to stand for it. And the taps.
Amazon.
The taps didn't come from B&Q. Yes, the taps came from Amazon.
The thing about Bath Shack, I think B&Q had really nice products. You could buy them individually. But Bath Shack has a deal for €650. You get an ensuite.
Yes.
So you get a toilet, you get a sink, you get a pedestal storage, and you get an enclosure for €650. So that's a great deal, actually.
Which was ideal for the kids' bedrooms, because they were just going to be identical ensuites. So that was the entire total cost that you had for sanitary ware in the grant was 2,800 for all sanitary ware. Now, I guess in some circumstances, some people would only be putting one bathroom in. We really were stretching it here and putting 4 bathrooms in and really trying to get the best value out of it. In total, we spent on the sanitary ware 2,300 on all of the sanitary ware, and we managed to get all of the bathrooms out of that.
So, folks, in total, I would love to share with you that we spent approximately 87,560 or something like this, through a range of places, mostly from 20,000 on the windows, maybe 10,000 on the roof, maybe about 40,000 through the building supplier locally, McMahon's, and probably about 15 to 18,000 on, I think, Amazon, B&Q, Bath Shack, all these other suppliers. But we were granted 70,000 as part of the Vacant Homes grant, and we wanted to make sure that we'd optimize every category we were going for. So from the get-go, we had said we wanted to spend maybe 10 to 15,000 above that. So we were hoping to spend about 82,000 euros, and that was really our target. Could you actually renovate a home for 82,000? And in order to do that, we had to do all the work ourselves.
We did, and I guess that would be the biggest expense. If you were doing this without doing it yourself, the massive expense would be labour.
Hugely,
really
yeah.
Getting someone else in to do it. So we were we were the builders.
Yeah.
So we
took a bit of time, but we managed to find some good professionals to work with. Like our electrician Kevin was wonderful. It was really, really great that he gave us so much time, and he oversaw our work, and then he came in and he tested our work and made sure it was all compliant. So he didn't have to do that. He Most electricians probably wouldn't, but he got the idea that we wanted to build a house like it used to be built 100 years ago. And we wanted to see, could you build it yourself? You know, it doesn't, like, you don't have to build an architecturally fantastic house or a brilliant, beautiful space to make a home, you know. A beautiful house and a lovely home, they're not necessarily the same thing. They can be, they don't have to. And our goal was always to make a lovely home, really. So the figures might be right or they might be wrong. I'll have to check when I'm editing. I know we submitted 87,500-ish to the grant, and I think we broke it down properly, but we might be out bits or pieces here, because the way I would explain it to you is different to the way we categorize the invoices. Like when we ordered stuff from the building suppliers, that was one price, but there was actually lots of different, like, bits for the roof, bits for the walls, bits for the floor, bits for the plumbing. And that's it. 87,000. That's what it cost us.
It is possible.
We managed to get the most spectacular home that we don't have a mortgage on. We did all the work ourselves. Any bit of savings we had, we begged and borrowed to get the money to do this. And that's probably one thing you're going to see. We're not actually going to be taking the money back from the grant and putting it into the house, because we did borrow that to, just to be clear, we did borrow that to fund this, and they're going to be repaid. These last 2 weeks, we've been kind of taking a break from our regular work as we made these kind of time lapse and the tour videos. And I'm getting a bit of itchy feet, really, to be honest. So I'm not quite sure how we wrap up this. This is what it cost and how much it cost us. Well, for in around 300,000, we bought the land in a beautiful part of the country. We renovated the house ourselves. And as you can see, there's still an awful lot more to do. So maybe in a year, 2 or 3 years, we might make another video and we might say how much it costs to landscape the outside, to put in patio, to put in the groundworks for the new electrical system, for maybe to do some work on some of the outbuildings. And that might be a more accurate figure. But for the most part, I think that's fair.
It is. And I think it's really, we only managed to do this because we prioritized what was important for the grant. So for us, the outside was not important. The outside of the house looks horrendous at the minute, and there's a lot of work to do outside, as you can see. All of the moving of the stones, all of the outside walling needs to be addressed. So, but that wasn't important for us to do. We needed to get in, get the stuff done for the grant. And so I think if you're going to take on this sort of a project, you do need to have that in mind. And it can be very easy to run away with something else, but that's not important, because at the end of the day, we had 18 months, but I think nowadays they've actually brought it down to 13 months. I know it's a struggle, but if you've only got such a small time frame of just over a year to do it, you do need to just sit down and work out exactly what you expect to do in that time in order to fulfill all of the costs categories and everything.
We were it was a blessing and a curse to have 18 months on the grant, because number one, it was good in that it forced you to have a timeline. So we've met so many people down here that aren't on a timeline, and their renovation maybe might take 3 or 4 years. So for us, we were very focused on that. It's a bit bittersweet as well, because we spend our life savings to move to the most beautiful place in the world, and we really want to set up a lovely home and a life here, but we can't quite do that yet because we have to do the work to build the house first. So there's lots of beaches we want to visit. There's lots of hikes we want to go on with Rooney. There's lots of places we want to explore. There's lots of restaurants we want to go to. We can't do any of that.
Life was kind of put on hold, wasn't it, for the 18 months?
Yeah, but there was we did a little bit in the garden. Like, we were adamant we wanted to plant the trees and to do a little bit to set up the polytunnel. And we knew we couldn't do a lot, so we did a little bit. But as soon as the summer came, we were inundated with the garden. It was just growing out of control, and you really felt that was pulling you away from building. And you didn't want to keep building because your garden was kind of going to ruin. And there's some other things like the bees took a lot of your time as well, and like the boat took a lot of my time. So it's very difficult to balance it. So if you're in this scenario, like be very focused on the timeline. Oh my God. Again. I'm not singing.
Not singing?
You sing.
No, I'm not singing. Rooney, come on, sing.
Do you know the song?
Don't put me on the spot.
Joy to the world.
Oh, yes.
So if you're in this situation, if you have a timeline, go hell for leather at it. You have the rest of your life to enjoy the place. Don't get caught up in doing all the other things at the moment. And that's the only way you can get through it, actually. And we wanted to be through it. Even though we had 18 months, we wanted to get it done in 12 months. Then we wanted to get it done in 15 months. So we worked really hard, especially during winter when you've no motivation. Work as hard as you can and try and finish up early. And that gives you a little bit of buffer, really. That comes to the end of this week. We have one more in our series, and that is what is the next plan for this farm and for the homestead and for the property and the land. And that is going to be an interesting one next week.
Yes. So stay tuned and slán go fóill.
Go raibh míle maith agat. Oh, there's a bird eating your fat ball now. Look at it sat inside there.
Well, there was a robin in there earlier.
Look at it.
Yeah.
What's that with the blue head?
Blue tit.
Okay. Should we call the blue head?
With a housing crisis. Is that a blooper?
God.
With a housing crisis. This video will reveal the full story. This video will reveal the full story of the restoration.
Starting.
This video will reveal the full story of the restoration.